Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Mark Sebastian, COO of OptionPit, for a monthly options expiration review and to discuss volatility trends. Mark, it's great to see you as always. And let's talk about those vol trends from October to November. We have the physical election out of the way, got some positive vaccination news. How did the vol markets respond?
I mean, as you might expect, volatility really came off a decent amount. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen VOLQ drop 10 points and the VIX along with it. We've seen market positioning really change. We've seen a bit of a change in overall trends between how the market is moving as a whole, with a bit of the old line companies doing better and tech slowing up a little bit. Interestingly, VOLQ, the QQQ vol index, is now trading below the VIX, which is just, I think, indicative of where the market is expecting movement in the coming days.
See, now that's interesting, because when we spoke last, I remember us discussing, would the VIX and VOLQ work inverse of each other? Because if the Nasdaq 100 was underperforming the S&P 500, which of course the VIX measures volatility off that index, if they would almost move the opposite of each other, but perhaps maybe not, because the S&P 500 itself is now so tech intensive.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100 have been kind of the laggards over the last 10 days, and the Dow Jones, the XLI, some of the industrial names, transpos, financials, those have been the outperformers over the last 10, 15 days. And that's all a part of the vaccination news. We now have 2 vaccines that are starting to potentially be approved this month. And then we're also hearing that Eli Lilly's COVID treatment is starting to actually be distributed nationwide. Here in Texas, Lubbock is going to be getting a huge amount of doses. There's going to be over 1 million doses of the Eli Lilly drug available by the end of the year, which, according to Eli Lilly, is going to significantly reduce the strain on our hospital system and the strain on our COVID patients, and reduce mortality that's falling anyway even further, which I think is absolutely wonderful news. You combine that with a vaccine, and the trading for Q1 and really the end of Q4 is at a really interesting crossroad.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say down here in Texas with your Chicago accent on blast there. So,
yeah.
So Mark, let's talk about
it. Expired this morning. The NDX expired this morning. The QQQs expired this afternoon. There's still a lot of trading and open interest in the triple Qs as we speak right now. There's a ton of activity going on in the Qs as people, make their plays on, what's even going to happen toward the end of the day. We're sitting here 29.35, 29.50. So we're right in between a couple of strike prices, and the 29.92s, 29.93s are absolutely in play and seeing some pretty decent volume today.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine too, if you're short, you're going to want all that time decay to come out, which it typically does pretty quickly on the last day of expiration. So Mark, when we talk about looking forward to December, what are a couple strategies that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think that the strength is going to be from your non-QQQ names, your non-tech names. So looking at the VOLQ, which is still 22, sounds low relative to the last 8 months. But if you go and pull out the historical VOLQ, that is exceedingly high from the previous 10 years minus a few dates. So I think an end of the year put spread strategy, selling put credit spreads or different types of puts makes a lot of sense. A basket of short puts in Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amgen, some of the biotechs. That seems like a really interesting income strategy into the end of the year. If I want to get long the market, if I'm looking to try and catch an upswing, some sort of momentum that appears like it's going to be in XLI, XLE, XLF, the financials. So that's an opportunity to look at some of the mid-cap banks. So the Nasdaq lists a lot of mid-cap banks, names like Fifth Third or Northern Trust. Those are, I think, interesting names to look at from a long perspective, heading into the end of the year. If oil catches a bid, if the old line economy starts to turn on, that's really going to play into their hands.
All right, Mark, great stuff. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.